Intro. Oppenheimer is a movie where we learn about how we entered the nuclear age and the world order we live in today, the New World Order. It's a movie that is based off of a true story, given how it's based off of J. Robert Oppenheimer, who is the person who created the nuclear bomb. We all know what that is, I'm guessing, considering they're everywhere. Basically, every country has one. Those nuclear weapons were one of a kind when they were made, and so it changed the world when people actually learned what they were. That being was the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki that really ended World War II. Then, afterwards, the nuclear monopoly changed, and that changed the world that we live in now and how we view danger and stuff like that. But before we see what our world looks like now, we need to see what caused us by looking at the story of Oppenheimer, like in the movie. We start off in the 1920s where Oppenheimer gets his PhD and he meets two people, Isidore and Heisenberg. Not that Heisenberg, but like the real life one. Then he goes to UC Berkeley and makes a quantum physics division in it. Through this, he's able to make friends and such through the people nearby, but some of those people are, gulp, communists. That's bad. This includes Jean Tatlock, who Oppenheimer later gets primal with in the movie, until he marries Kitty, who is a biologist. Then, World War II starts, which, means the US needs to develop more weapons. Lawrence gets Colonel Rose to put Oppenheimer on the Manhattan Project, which happens, that just magically works. The Manhattan Project is what's making the atomic bomb. They need to do this before the Germans, and in a way to not be found out, so they go to a random desert town in New Mexico, the Breaking Bad state. People don't want to make WMDs, and Robert is harassed by dirty liberals to not build a nuclear weapon that could kill anyone, basically, and everyone. Also, surprised Jean is dead. In her room, after he visits her. Whoopsies, that's totally... Guys, I'm innocent, I swear. That just happens. Nothing bad. But, as World War II happens, the Germans surrender, but not the Japanese. They're still fighting. They're still fighting strong. So, this still has a purpose, because it'll make them surrender. Anyways, it's time for a test for a plutonium bomb. It's scheduled for July, which is before the Potsdam Conference. The Trinity test is successful. 25 kilograms of TNT successful. And then the US bombs Hiroshima and Nagasaki, basically ending the war. Even though Oppenheimer has these people loving him and the country loves him for his invention, he feels guilty for all the innocent people who died. He's like, maybe we shouldn't develop these weapons that kill more people. And then, says that to President Truman, and he's, calling him a crybaby sissy for it. So, you win some, you will lose some. So, Lewis Strauss, on the other hand, who's in charge of the Atomic Energy Commission, of course, wants Oppenheimer not to say these things. So he's like, look at this dirty communist over here. Look at him. It's crazy. Which works, as Oppenheimer's security, clearance, is taken after a board review. They were like, oh, we're just going to take it away. But guess what? Strauss isn't able to become Secretary of Commerce because of his attack on Oppenheimer. This was after, of course, hydrogen weapons were developed. For some reason, after Oppenheimer's clearance is taken away, hydrogen weapons become a thing. But we then get to see a conversation between Oppenheimer and Albert Einstein, where Einstein talks about Oppenheimer being shunned and Oppenheimer being like, what have I done? When talking about his creation, the atomic bomb. The credits roll as the movie ends with the explosions of what could be a nuclear war scenario. It's all hypothetical, of course. The world order that we follow now is one that revolves around the idea of nuclear weapons, the atomic bombs that everyone has. Does a country have nuclear weapons? And if it does, what do we do with it? It can't be attacked due to the idea of mutually assured destruction, even if they are our enemy, because a lot of countries have enough to blow up a lot of cities, which isn't good, because a lot of people live there. And countries like the US, Russia, China, Israel, and some more basically, they all have more than 50 nukes. That's enough to do a lot of damage and possibly kill like millions and millions of people. If they launched them all, it probably would be billions of people because, let's face it, a lot of people live in those countries. There is a lot more countries that have nukes, which shows how like much power is kind of in the hands of few. Because like you have the majority of countries that don't have nukes, and then you have the minority of countries that just have a lot of power because they have nukes. This power is a lot because it makes sure that they are safe, but they also like give this idea of like, oh, we can also destroy the world if we want to. If anyone else with this power decides to attack them in any way or form, not even if they have nuclear weapons too, just like if they have alliances, because alliances mean a lot. Like nowadays, this wasn't really a thing before the invention of the nuke because, you know, no weapon really was enough to end the entire world. Sure, there were larger countries that had more power, but nothing really to the scale of, I will threaten the entire world if you attack me. It wasn't like that. That simple phrase wasn't a thing back then. It was just, don't mess with my army because mine is larger. If you've ever played Agario, you'll know what it's like. The larger circle absorbs the smaller circle. That's basically what war was back then. It's like that, and it's like Hearts of Iron 4, where a larger number just always wins. You just subtract it, and bam, you win, because you have a larger army. That, and the advancement of killing people with technologies like tanks and ships and all that, was what the majority of World War II was. It was who had the best military and who had the best technology. Like, who was more developed in war. Not really fully based on destruction, just on the power that countries had. Power being different from destruction in many ways, but because when you have power, you can do anything. You can do anything without needing to destroy things. But destruction, on the other hand, is simply getting rid of everything that someone else has. This shifted after the atomic bomb was made because, guess what? It's based on destruction. It destroyed Hiroshima. It destroyed Nagasaki. Well, you know how those ended. What else could it destroy? And what more could it destroy considering how much it's evolved? The idea of building the bomb to be larger and larger and more destructive is what followed the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The idea that destroying more is how you instill power and obedience in the people. In all fairness, though, everything has reached a point where people haven't been at war for a long while. At least not the countries that have nukes. They haven't been in war for a while. It's there, it's just edging you into something that people don't know what is going to happen. It's like this random thing, which is good because no war is good, but it really is this like idea of, would you rather be edged by a mass murderer or go primal with a business major? It's something that is kind of like, yes, nuclear bombs did eliminate these wars, but that probably wouldn't have happened before. But also, it made war more destructive if it ever did happen between these countries. That's why it's kind of more dangerous. Less wars, but overall, more stakes if war ever happens, because it's more destructive and all that. So this kind of begs the question now, should we in the modern day keep these weapons of mass destruction around? Well, you know, that's a complicated question. Doesn't matter where people are. There's mixed answers because defense is so important. You just need them. So we need them, but that means other countries need them too. Now, of course, this is the classic defense, considering it's literally just the one argument that one person from Saudi Arabia used. If they get one, we get one. Literally what he said on the news. But then if you eliminate all nukes entirely, it would be a more peaceful, because while no mutually assured destruction, the world would be a little bit more calmer. Now, of course, with no nukes comes the problem of trust, which is still technically a problem today. Even them on the countries, if they have nukes, if they would follow the deals to say no nukes, because people can always turn their backs. People be lying. This was one of the things with the Iran nuclear deal that was mentioned at some point before we drew out of it. So it's still also a present day thing, which makes sense as a lot of countries sign deals and then maybe break them. I don't know. Things just happen. This is obviously not what Oppenheimer thought about while making the bomb. He kind of was just put to it. He just put the work and to make it. He didn't really have a say in it. Everything outside of making it was out of his control, because it's impossible to expect it to come to something like this where everything really is controlled and dictated by it. That's what the last sequence shown was supposed to represent, in a way. All the ways that this weapon was used and how he didn't know what was going to happen after it gets out of his control, and how the end of the world was caused by his invention. It's guilt, it's guilt, it's guilt, it's buzzwords. The sight of a nuke, even dropping, is the scariest part, because people know what happens afterwards. That's how fear is instilled. They know the explosions, they know all the kilograms of TNT it does, and they know all the stuff that usually follows them, like the radiation. You ever play Fallout? It's basically like, you know that. You know what's going to happen afterwards. But this whole thing was started from one thing, one little thing. That being one nuclear weapon that was created originally to defeat the Germans. But since they went out of the war before we really finished, like the project, we just had to show the power to some other country. We showed patriotism and power to Japan. This acted as a big warning signal to the rest of the world that power has changed, and it can destroy all these little dense cities if people mess with the US or whoever had nuclear weapons. It would be a disaster for them. Of course, this changed when the Soviet Union also got nukes as well, because the Soviet Union isn't really a democracy. Let's be honest, guys, they didn't have freedom over there. And also is more of a threatening nation to the US. This uneasiness is what made them scary to have nukes, as well as the US. The Soviet Union was also an enemy of the US, mainly because of how they went about getting Eastern Europe, and also about how they really didn't give any information during World War II for what was happening on that side. You just didn't know. You just didn't know what was happening on that side. You just had to be like, oh, they did it. So this mystery is why people got scared, because who knows what they were doing, considering they were scaring their people with propaganda and all that other stuff that works in scaring their people. Now, also, that these two countries don't trust each other. They have nuclear weapons. It also means that people have to fear both of them, or get in line with one of them and just really pray. Pray and get in line to hope that the side you picked is the good one, and the better one in the long run, since there's no telling who has what and how they'll use it. Well, the Soviet Union lost, by the way. The order changed to relying on larger nations for protection, just in case something happened, because they will be our sole protectors. Which superpower are you gonna pick in the world? Basically, that was the choice. Sure, this was semi the case beforehand, but not really. The US was only supplying stuff to countries like Britain and the Allies, it wasn't really a protector, just like a supplier. But after these WMDs were formed, and because of World War II, America's role changed on the world landscape. America was more isolationist before, like, oh, let's not get involved with anything at one point. I know, it's a real shocker to think of that, like, the U.S. being a country and having that mindset. But that's just how it was. But after World War II, we saw how, like, mighty we were. We saw that we are a superpower. Possibly the only one. It kind of gave us a little bit of an ego boost. And it was like, wow, we really are this tough, huh? While doing some, like, anime corny stuff while saying that. Because then we use that toughness as influence on all these proxy wars like Korea or Vietnam, basically the Cold War proxy wars. This made America more globalist in a way, since it had to protect all these countries, and that is a mentality that has carried for a long time after World War II, which has led to things like the War on Terror and all these things that affect us today. This mentality has also what has caused more stress on people, because these proxy wars were also usually with the Soviet Union, or allied nations with the Soviet Union, until it dissolved. Now, this is like being extra edged, because, like, what if they use it? What if they use the nuclear bomb? I mean, why wouldn't they use it to win? I mean, look at it. It's an easy win. Luckily, though, they didn't. But it is that possibility that frightens people into thinking the end of the world is going to happen. Which, end of the world is not that great. The fear that people have with their lives being so easily at stakes has also caused more tensions between nations that have nukes, like how we are more fearful of them now. And we fear nukes, and when we think of fear, or like the end of the world, we always imagine these nuclear weapons. The world has a lot of fear in it, and that's what has been brought by the now common nuclear weapons countries have. A fear that wasn't there before because of the destruction that had been caused in Japan during the Second World War, which kind of instilled that fear into people. The world changed when they saw what these could do, and now they're the things that determine our future. So, the way the movie handles the creation of it shows how big of an impact this really was, especially in the end of the movie was the sequence. You could see how big of a change it was. Now, considering how fast the movie is edited and shot, the music somewhat matches that tempo, but it has that more classical style to it. There's a lot of strings used to make the sounds of the songs and stuff throughout the movie, which gives it more of that, like, upper class-esque sound, like you're the man in the suit in the movie. So, the music is actually pretty good at getting through the movie and adding to it, because it's more than the sounds in the back. So, it's good, and there's some songs that work well for it because of how the movie moves very fast at some points, and the camera angles just switch and switch over and over again. It's fast, and the music helps to elevate that in a way. It just works. That's all, really. It's good music. But the numbers for the movie are a different scenario. Now, the movie was part of that Barbenheimer effect, so it made a lot more than it probably would have. For people who somehow, somewhere, some why, don't know what the Barbenheimer effect was, it was just that Barbie released on the same day as Oppenheimer, so a lot of people were like, pink nuclear bombs, and they saw both movies at the same time. So it was a lot of money made because of that. So it made $975.8 million in the box office with a $100 million budget, which means it was actually an expensive movie to make, but it did good. Third highest grossing movie of 2023. Considering the movie is also 3 hours long, exactly, including credits and all that, it's weird to see it make that much money in the box office, but It did, but it also got positive reviews as well. That being a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 4.2 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Good scores, but it has an 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb, where that puts it as the 126th highest rated movie. That's a good thing. Based on Metacritic, it got a 90, which also puts it high up there, which makes sense because it was overall a good movie and did a lot of things right. It was a fun watch, especially in IMAX. These movies are fun to watch in an IMAX theater. So, the scores are accurate on my part. Overall, Oppenheimer is a good movie that shows us the dangers of entering the New World Order, like the nuclear weapons one that we're in right now, and the impacts of it. It's good at showing how we got here and what it actually means to the world. I would personally give the movie a 10 out of 10, but put it right below Screaming Interstellar. I would recommend it to people if they haven't seen it, because it's a pretty good movie. But if you have different opinions on the movie, then you could comment your thoughts down below. Use your First Amendment right in the New World Order or whatever. Comment them down below if you want to. But that's about it. Please like and subscribe. Pretty please.